I'd like to know, what is a neo-Christian or a Patrisian?
Thank you for your question. What is a neo-Christian or Patrician? Let's read the definition for neo so you can understand what a neo-Christian is. Neo is defined as a term that represents something modern. Look at this. Modern or new. Used with many nouns and adjectives to make nouns and adjectives describing things that exist in the present in a slightly different form from the way that they existed in the past. This is from the Macmillan Dictionary. So you ask a question, what is a neo-Christian or Patrician? I'm going to deal with neo-Christian again. Let's read this definition. Neo is defined as something that is modern, something that is new, used with many nouns and adjectives to make nouns and adjectives describing things that exist in the present in a slightly different form from the way that they existed in the past. Dictionary.com defines it as a combining form meaning new, recent, revived, modified, used in the formation of compound words. Patrician is a term that developed because we want to be able to apply the proper name to what people are practicing today that they refer to as Christianity. So I want you to look at this. Modern Christianity practices pagan holidays. The apostles didn't practice Christmas, Easter. The apostles did not collect tithes to fund their ministry. The apostles did not worship Jesus Christ as God. The apostles did not wear crosses and crucifixes. The apostles did not say that the law had been abrogated. Quite to the contrary, the apostles held everybody accountable to the law. The apostles observed the dietary code. They observe all of the ordinances as it relates to God's code of ethics. Do modern Christians hold to these very same tenets? No, they do not. Modern Christians hold their convocation on Sunday. Biblical Christians observed it on Saturday. So the seventh day of the week. So who introduced these changes, these modifications? Ignatius of the 2nd century, Irenaeus of the 2nd century, Justin Martyr of the 2nd, 3rd century, St. Augustine, Jerome, Clement, Origen, Tertullian, Thomas Aquinas. You had a number of patristics. Patristic is a Greek word for, comes from pater, Greek for father, Latin for father. So your church fathers. So you have to change the nomenclature. You can no longer classify organizations and institutions that practice the veneration of pagan holidays, the wearing of pagan symbols such as crosses and crucifixes, as a practice that biblical Christians would have embraced, because they didn't. So you have to change the name. And so the name that we have applied to them are neo-Christians. In other words, they have something that's Christ-like, but yet it's a different type of Christ. It's a different way of teaching Christ's gospel. I want you to look at something. This is what the Apostle Paul said to the assembly at Galatia. We embrace this. I understand what Paul is talking about. Galatians 1:6-9. I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting him who called you in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. Not that there is another one, but there are some who trouble you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. We're taking the gospel of Christ, we're taking the gospel of Yeshua in its purest form, and we are evangelizing it. Then someone comes and they interject their own ideas, their own perspective, their own interpretation of who Christ is or who Christ should be. And then they begin to proclaim that message of Christ. Paul says, no. Look, he says there is only one gospel of Christ. There's only one. But yet somebody has taken this one and they have amended, appended, they have added to, they have taken away from this particular gospel of Christ, which is pure, given to us in an unadulterated form. Somebody has corrupted it. And we are saying today that these somebodies were the church fathers of today, Patristics. This is the reason Christianity looks the way it looks today. So you cannot call it biblical Christianity, brothers and sisters. You cannot call it apostolic Christianity. You cannot call it the Christianity that resembles Christ or that reinforces his doctrine, his views, his perspectives, his spiritual ideology. Well, people can do what they want to do, right? But I'm just saying, if we are being honest and if we're being genuine, if we are retaining our biblical discipline, you have to admit that what nearly 3 billion people are practicing today is radically different from what's written in the Bible. So you change the nomenclature from, again, biblical Christianity to what it is today. Neo-Christianity. It is a modern form. It is a new form of Christianity. We can add one step further, right? We call it Patristianity. It is the Christianity that's formed by the Patristics, the church fathers. Let's highlight it a little bit more. You then refer to its followers not as Christians, but as Patricians, because they are following the doctrine of the church fathers. Let's look at this. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 15, Paul says, "So then, brothers, stand firm and hold to the traditions that you were taught by us, not by the church fathers, not by the disciples, but by the apostles." He says, either by our spoken word or by our letter. Stand firm upon the traditions. Don't add any new teaching or doctrine or revelation to what we have delivered to you. And we embrace that wholeheartedly. We understand what the Apostle Paul and what the rest of the apostles are talking about. Our concern is that we don't feel that based upon our observation and an analysis of these various denominations' doctrines, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, Baptists, Pentecostals, Holiness, Presbyterians, AME, CME, Church of Christ, all of them, we don't see these doctrines and denominations really and truly being biblical Christians, practicing biblical Christianity. Let's read verse 7 of Galatians chapter 1, 6 through 9. Verse 7 says, "Not that there is another one, not that there is another gospel, but there are some who trouble you and would distort the gospel of the anointed. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed. As we have said before, so now I say again, if anyone is preaching to you a gospel contrary to the one you receive, let him be accursed." The apostles observed their Sabbath on the seventh day of the week. In the 2nd century AD, the disciples began to assemble on the seventh day of the week, as it is commanded by God in the Bible. And they also assembled on the first day of the week for a short period of time to recognize the death and resurrection of Christ. When the second century Christians began to divest themselves from the doctrine of the biblical Christians, first century Christianity, they removed Jewish features, Israelite features, or features or instruments that could be considered emblematic to the Jew. The dietary code, the holy days, the Sabbath. You throw them out because it makes you look Jewish. And so, see, there's a lot of history that our brothers and sisters in Neo-Christianity and Patristianity don't have. Now, many of the scholars have this, but sadly, it doesn't make its way from the classroom to the pulpit. And if it doesn't make its way from the classroom to the pulpit, it's not going to make its way to the pew. So the people don't know. Scholars know. You have theologians, you have those who are pastors of churches, those who have studied in seminary. They may have this understanding, and then they have to make a choice, a decision. Do I share this with my congregation? If they shared the information that certainly I have and many people in our community have, you're going to lose your church, because this is what people have been taught for the past 1800 years. And so for you to suggest that what I have been learning in Christianity is really and truly not Christianity, it is patristical Christianity. It's not something that was started by Christ and the apostles. It's something that was started by the patristics, the church fathers, and their disciples. I'm out. Now, how do I know this for a fact? Because I have many associates and friends who were evangelicals. And once they graduated from seminary, either obtaining their graduate degree or their doctorate in theology or biblical studies, they found, based upon academic study and research, that the type of Christianity that the world is practicing today is not the Christianity of the apostles. It's not the Christianity of Christ. It is, and I say this respectfully, so please, it is a fraudulent version of biblical Christianity. And so some people say, well, you know what? This was kind of my last run. I don't know what to do now, so I'm out. And that's very hurtful. It's sad. But there's a way to come back. And how do you come back? You go back to the law and the prophets. You go back and you understand who Yeshua is. He was a Torah fundamentalist. He ascribed to the law and the prophets. Who were the apostles? They were Torah fundamentalists in the faith of Yeshua, the anointed. They followed his teachings. As those who were disciples of various rabbis in the first century, they followed their teachings. So what we're concluding with is this. The question that you ask about Neo-Christianity and Patrician, you get to the point where you are reading the Bible and you're asking yourself a question. Did the apostles believe in a Trinity? Did they even know what a Trinity was? Or did they profess a triunity? In other words, the Father is in agreement with the Son is in agreement with the Father, the Holy Spirit is in agreement with the Son, the Holy Spirit is in agreement with the Father. They are separate entities that all agree on one objective, one goal, one mission. They move as one unit, one body, but they're three separate. So this is clearly explicated from the Old Testament to the New Testament. But yet we have the Trinitarian formula that has been created by, again, Trinitarians of the 2nd century. So, to answer your question, what is a neo-Christian? A neo-Christian represents today 3 billion people who have adopted the philosophy and ideology of the church fathers, whom we call the Patristics, and they proclaim their doctrine. Therefore, they are not the descendants or the practitioners of apostolic Christianity or biblical Christianity, but they are the descendants and the practitioners of patristical Christianity, right? Hence, Patricians. I hope this helps you out with your question. Thank you very much. May the blessings of Yah be with you. Feel free to write to us. If we have information pertaining to the subject, we will be more than happy to do a small presentation on it. If we don't, we can partner together to research. My name is Arya Ben Nasik. Give us a call at 704-553-7625. You can visit our website at www.nccischarlotte.com. Please, please, please do not take this presentation as an attack on you or your friends or your pastor, your mom, or anybody. We are merely identifying the faults, the fallacies in certain denominations that claim to be a Christian denomination. We respectfully disagree unless you are keeping it the way it was kept by the 1st century apostles in every way, shape, and form. We'll see you next week. Shalom.